Welcome to TrulyFit.
Thank you so much for joining the TrulyFit podcast. Why don't you give my listeners a background on who you are and what exactly it is that you do day to day?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Camille Walker. I am a podcaster. I have a podcast called Call Me CEO, where I share stories of mothers building businesses and how they manage to handle that, as well as raise their kids in a healthy way. And I also am a blogger. I've been doing that for the last 12 years, where I share family content of every kind. If you've ever been on Pinterest, that is the mecca of where my traffic comes from. So we share a lot of recipes, travel, parenting, motherhood topics in general, or parenting topics. And I'm also a business coach. So I help mothers build virtual assistant businesses as a job that they can do from home. And I also help busy entrepreneurs hire those entrepreneurs as my graduates who are looking for someone they can trust and help them alleviate the load, because so many of us are just so busy. But more than anything, I am a wife and a mother of 4. I have children's ages 14, 11, 8, and 6. And it's my favorite thing that I do. So I love being a mom. And I think my biggest message is that you can be a mom and love being a mom and also pursue passion outside of that, taking care of yourself, having adventure and friendships, and also maybe even starting that thing that you've always wanted to do.
That's fantastic. And I have a lot of thoughts in my mind after that intro. We're going to talk mainly about how you just finished that up, about people being busy and how you manage multiple things at a time, being a parent and being an entrepreneur. But I first want to go back to something you said, because I don't have Pinterest. I don't know anything about Pinterest, but I recently did come across an article randomly. It must have been targeting me because I don't have it, that you can really get a lot of SEO if done properly through Pinterest. How would you do that if you were, let's say, a fitness professional? How would you manage like a Pinterest account?
Oh my goodness. There are so many opportunities available on Pinterest. Pinterest just announced that they're opening for commerce as well, so that people can start shopping the product through video as well as through images. And so that's a new thing, that making it shoppable in a different way, not just a link that extends somewhere else, but actually the platform itself. But Pinterest is honestly one of those things that it is put together in a way that it is driven by SEO. So if there are keywords that you're wanting to attract to yourself, you can say, maybe you're working with core fitness, or maybe you're looking for cardio or strength training or diet regimes, or whatever the thing is. And you can actually go to Pinterest and use those keywords to see what pops up first, to see what your competition would be.
Sure.
But also you can get really niche specific about really niche things. So say that it's like core work for women over 40. That's something that you could be searchable for and use that in your board description and your pin description for people to actually find very specifically what they want to find on Pinterest.
Well, that's great information. And, talking about Pinterest and the social medias, sometimes it's overwhelming. You have Pinterest, you have YouTube, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have new things popping up every day. If you're an entrepreneur and you're, let's say, running a podcast like you are, and you're a parent, you have all these social medias you think you have to keep up to. What are some tips and tricks that you have, either personally, anecdotally for yourself, or that you give other people to say, hey, this is how you kind of manage all these things and rein them in so that you're not overwhelmed?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing to start with is don't try to be a master of everything. Start with something that you really love, 1 or 2, and really gain an understanding of the way that the algorithm works. And listen, they're always changing. So if you can invest in a website or a podcast or an email list, those are things that will never change, and they will be your own in a way that other platforms will always change. And so it's not for the it's not for the weary of heart, because you really have to be willing to pivot. And I consider myself an OG in that I've been a blogger before blogging was profitable. Like, it was something that you kind of have to learn and adapt and be willing to change with the tides. However, I highly suggest that you maximize your reach by bringing people onto your team who are better at doing the thing than you are doing. And that is why I am such an advocate of hiring and expanding your team so that you can excel at what it is that you do personally. And I think that that takes a lot of evaluation of your skill set, as well as what you find, real desire and interest in. And then those things that maybe you're proficient in, but you wouldn't be as fast or as good as someone else, or something you just hate. Those are the things that you want to hire out first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is where a virtual assistant, I feel like it is the way to grow an online business. If you're looking to reach outside of your own scope of what you see in your everyday, or maybe a social media you're not as comfortable with, hiring on a team is super, super helpful. And that's the way that I've been able to expand and grow my business is I find people who are better at doing the things, even though I've done them for years and years. I've trained them and then let them take it, or I've hired people who are even better, way better than me at doing, say, Pinterest, for example. That's something I used to do for years. And I had one person manage that for about 7 years. And then I realized that there are new things like pin ideas, which is like images that you can turn into video.
Mm.
And there are trending video pin ideas every single week. And I don't have in my bandwidth to be researching what those pin trends are every single week.
Sure.
But guess what? I just found someone who I can hire who does that research and can make it so that that piece of that pie that brings so much traffic to my website and would for a fitness professional or anyone else, that is available. You to find the right person.
Yeah, well said. You have to work on your business, not in your business.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part is that first step, because typically, at least from our perspective, fitness professionals, time is our greatest asset. And we fill that time with people working one-on-one. And then at some point, when you get really good at what you do, all of your hours are booked up. And I always tell people that I mentor, young fitness professionals, at some point, you have to take a front end hit, whether that's you taking a week off or whether that's you just canceling your Friday appointments, so that you can step back, you can reevaluate, you can hire people to do the easier things. Maybe that's a junior coach to take on your other clients. Maybe that is, like you said, a virtual assistant to handle some marketing aspect. I have 3 virtual assistants that I use for various things at any given time. So I think it's really difficult to do. And also it's a personality thing. There's some people who I'm one of them, who don't have that personality. I want to handle everything. I think I could do everything better. And that's maybe that's not wrong, but I don't have the bandwidth, the same term that you just used before, to be able to do that. So why not focus my energy and efforts on the things that either A, bring in the most value, B, bring the most value to me that I enjoy doing, or C, are setting me up for long-term success in my business, and then sort of pawn those other things off. And I think that's a difficult thing for some people to do, just taking that first step. Now, you have a program that helps people get to this sort of virtual assistant type business model. You want to go ahead and explain that?
Yeah. So it's funny because when I get 3 questions and I have for the past decade. Number 1, how do I make friends? A lot of us are lonely, looking for a connection. Number 2, how do I make money from home? And number 3, how do I offload all of my overwhelm? I have too much that I'm handling. And so for at least question number 2 and 3, I thought, man, if I were to start a business from home right now, it wouldn't be blogging. Blogging has changed in a way that unless you're in it and you have really established something, it's hard to start fresh. But as a virtual assistant, there are so many different demands and needs that people have as business owners that many people who have that skill set are at home and could work that into their schedule. So on the flip side of that, what you're referring to is how to actually get someone to take that leap of bringing someone onto their team with trust and taking the step of expanding their business and their mindset in that way. That is something that I have coached people with, because honestly, most often when people have come to me and say, I've been thinking about getting someone, I thought about it for the last 6 months, or a year. And I'll always, when I start talking to them, typically they've been needing one as long as they've been thinking about getting one. But it's just getting to the place of acknowledging that and being okay with that. And part of that can be fear. And part of that can be a sense of like loss of control or trust, which I get it. It's your baby, like your business and what you do, and it represents you. And so that's where matching up my graduates from my program that I personally vet and then connecting them and coaching them through that has been monumental. I wish there were more of me, because honestly, there's such a demand for that piece that I feel like businesses have so much growth potential if business owners and entrepreneurs allow themselves to step into that place of fear to allow themselves to grow.
Yeah, and coming back to the other side, being a virtual assistant, I think. So I'll give a quick anecdote here. I wrote a book. It's right behind me, Fitness Business 101. And prior to like getting it published, I had a few different editors going through it, and I paid an editor, let's say through Upwork, to look through it, who was a former English teacher. And I'm sure they made a lot more money off of those, 20 hours of editing my book than they would, if you broke down what they were making as a high school English teacher for 20 hours. So there are so many professions now that you can do online to use your skill set. And I think there is maybe a misnomer that, oh, a virtual assistant is just somebody like in the Philippines who's like doing data sheets for me. No. There's high level jobs, whether that's on Upwork or you using your skill set to be able to work through different channels in the internet industry. And is there any jobs specifically that you think are maybe not known about, or ones that you push your clients to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that there are three main areas that I see the most demand for right now. Number one being community development and social media, whether that's, answering DMs, responding to comments, engaging with other people's accounts so that they can grow. That could also be on Facebook if you have like a Facebook page or group community that you want to create a community feel around, and that takes time, so you have to have someone that you feel can portray yourself and your image well. So community is a big piece of that. The next is digital marketing in way of digital art. So if that's helping with content creation and scheduling, that's another piece that a lot of people really need help with. And the third most common is admin type work, where it's, customer service, email management. Maybe if you have product or different things like that, it's helping with returns or outreach. If you have a podcast and you are looking to expand your reach and your growth that way, those are probably the top three that I see most common. But what's really interesting is that many of my students have gone on to work in professional offices that you might not always imagine. So I've had someone who has gone on to work in a dental office, one with a plastic surgeon. I've had another with a real estate agency, and so it doesn't have to be an online business only that can have that virtual assistant work done, because there are so many things that can be done from home now. And I think because of the pandemic, it's opened people's and minds to how they can expand their business without having to bring in a traditional employee.
I also think some of those jobs you just named, there are people who are great at them and they don't know that they're great at them. Right. So,
yeah.
So it could be like, I have honestly like DM like a 20-year-old before. I'm 37 and said, hey, listen, I love what you do in X, Y, and Z part of the social media. Can you help me? This person had no idea what they were doing was special or different. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe this is what everyone was doing in his particular circle. But for me, it was really good. It was better than anyone was doing in my circle. So I said, hey, I'm willing to pay you. He wasn't even looking for a job. So I think it's recognizing that we have skill sets that are sometimes unknown to us, and maybe taking that feedback from someone like you, a coach or family members, to say like, oh, hey, we really like this about you. I always talk about this in the fitness industry, started to turn on here a little bit, but there's so many times where people don't take advantage of building their niche around what they're best at. So you'll see somebody who's like an expert at whatever, like some body weight movements, and they always get these compliments on these body weight movements they're doing in the gym from their clients. But it's like, okay, well then use that to your advantage. Build a specialized body weight course that you upcharge for. You have to really like take in the information about what you're good at, take the compliments and turn them into, a financial win.
I love that. And I think you're right in that. And a lot of times the special skill set that we have may not even be right in front of our face, where we recognize either what it is we can sell or teach people, but also what we could do to help other people in way of building our own service. And so oftentimes something I will encourage people to do is ask your 3 to 5 closest friends or family, what do you think I'm really good at? And because that, I think so often we take for granted something that may come to us naturally, that we don't always think that that is something that you could monetize or that you think sticks out. So listening to clients and the people that know you and love you best, I think is huge insight. I love that advice.
Yeah. And that is, I echo those thoughts that you just piggybacked on. And I think people just don't do it. Maybe it's that we don't take compliments well. I know I don't. and you just kind of let them roll off your back. But eventually, it's important to build your skill set around that. And I talk about that in fitness. There's typically two personalities. You have what I call direct and demonstrative. You have the people who are very science based. They can look at your body, Camille, and be like, well, she has knee valgus and this is going on, and we can work on this, and more of a sort of a physical therapist-esque viewpoint. And then you have trainers who are very bold and they're affable and they have really great personalities and they can put on a show. And I say, well, if that's your personality, you're better in group fitness. That's where you're going to make your money. You got to put on the show. You got to be an intra trainer. And if you're somebody with an eye for the little things, well, then maybe you should go work on one-on-one fashion and really help people, get towards their goals. But there's a space for everybody. You just have to know your overall skill sets in any industry. And I'm sure that's the same with your clients.
100%. Yeah. I think that it's so often that reevaluating where you are every 6 months, I think is a great practice of where am I in my goals of where I want to be and how am I using 80% of my time to really do the things that make a difference. Because that 80-20 where it's like, so often we just do the 20% that's actually like moving the needle or making a difference in our business. And it's really easy to get lost in the minutia rather than those things that really matter, that 20%. So I think just doing a check and balance every 6 months or even sooner is a really good idea to take a look at what's working and what's not.
Let's talk about balancing all of the different things that someone like you or I have to balance. If you run a podcast, you have a business. Most of us, I'm sure you do too, have multiple businesses or at least multiple sides to a business. You have children. I have one. I have a 16-month-old girl. And, it's a lot to manage, including keeping yourself, healthy and sort of from both a physical and a psychological perspective. What do you do to manage your day to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed personally?
Yeah. I think one of the number one things that really helped me is to create a system for number one, knowing what I need to do to fill up my cup first, as we hear this 100 times 100, but it's so important to move your body. So for me, I talk a lot to my audience about movement, whatever that movement is that brings you joy and lets you to feel a sense of equilibrium within yourself, but then also to have systems with home and business. So what are the things that you do, those little micro habits that stack upon each other that help you to save time in your day? So take, for example, when I am getting my kids off to school, I'll give you a motherhood tip and then we can go into business. But one thing that's really helped me as a mom is that I guess we'll say a debrief of what's happening that day with my kids. I do it the night before and I do it the morning of. So I'll say we get in the car this morning and we did it today. So it's something that it's what we do. We'll get in the car and I'll say, okay, today's Tuesday. What happens on Tuesday? And they'll help rehearse this with me. Oh, Tuesday, Jane has orchestra. She's carrying her cello, which means I have to pick you up from school. But there's an extra caveat today. Jackson, my 14-year-old, has a doctor's appointment at 4:00, which is right when his NAL ends, which is a National Academic League. The Nerd Club is what they call it. So I discuss with them, would you rather walk home today or would you rather come with me and have to sit in the waiting room with Jackson while he's in his appointment? And that's a very short span of time that is different from the typical day, but it's to rehearse what is going on and how are we going to make this happen as a team. And I found that more often than not, communication, whether it's in business or with your kids, if you can rehearse with them what's going on, hear what their concerns are, and then troubleshoot together. So what my kids decided today was my daughter said, well, I'd really just prefer to come with you and wait in the waiting room, and I'll help take care of Jensen, the youngest, the 6-year-old, where my almost 9-year-old said, I'd prefer to walk home and I'll wait the hour at home. And that's what they decided. And as long as we know that that's like what is happening, we are all good. That doesn't always go perfectly, but we also do some grounding in the morning, and we'll say a prayer as we drive to school, which is a little unconventional. And maybe people would say weird, but like for us, it's a really good grounding thing to do. We review the day, we say a prayer, I drop them off, and we go about our day. When I had kids at home, I very much had to set up a routine of knowing when my pockets of time for productivity were and when my family time was. So this really comes down to compartmentalizing. First of all, knowing when you're the most productive. Is it morning, night? or night, late at night, or is it pockets in the day? For me, like nap time was a huge opportunity for me to get some things done. It didn't mean I got a lot of things done during that time. It was very much pockets of time. But if you're juggling different things, you just have to work with time blocking and setting time aside ahead of time. I could go on about this forever, but I'm going to stop right there so you can respond to even that little bit.
I love it all. I love. I want to comment on the last part of it because that's kind of where your ideas fuse with mine, and that is understanding yourself, which this is sort of the thesis of the conversation here. It helps so much. I am a morning person. I will wake up at 5:30. My daughter does too, but I would wake up at 5:30 anyway, and I can handle everything in the morning where my wife is not. So no big deal. Dad gets everything ready in the morning. Dad gets baby ready, breakfast ready, cleans, does whatever. But at 6 p.m., I turn into a pumpkin. My brain does not work anymore. I cannot function. So then there's a role reversal, and dad gets to relax, and then mom gets to take over bedtime and do those sorts of things. That's no different than a business model, right? When you know that you can handle something and you're better at that, or it's easier for you, or it's more efficient, let's use that term, then go ahead and take advantage of your skill sets that are going to make the company, or in this case, the family, more efficient. And I think that goes sometimes unnoticed because people have to be introspective and say, if something's not working, maybe you're not really that good at it, and maybe there's a better way we can go about handling this. And I think, just like you said, understanding time and being honest with yourself. What can I do? What can I not do? And another small thing is I like to cook. I don't have to think about it that much, meaning like my wife is less picky than I am. So it's much easier for me to be the cook because she doesn't care. She'll eat anything. So it's easier for the family if I cook. So I just think just evaluating the family and how that all works is how you set the schedule and how you have a schedule that is productive and efficient.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that I love that you said you turn into a pumpkin, because that's what we've always said about my mom. Past 8 o'clock, she just, there's no hope. Like she's done. But I love that you said that, because I think that so often we can get wrapped up in what we think things are supposed to look like. Like, oh, well, the man is supposed to do this and the woman is supposed to do this. And I'll be honest, I think my husband was more of a traditional mindset, and it's taken some time. We've been married 18 years. And I think it's taken some time for us both to figure out how those roles can morph and change, especially as you develop and grow into your family and your roles. And also, we just had this conversation last night, is sometimes as the wife and the mother, it can be hard for me to let go of things that I'm used to being done a certain way. And we said, just like a partnership, if you hand something off to someone, say cooking or laundry or whatever the thing is, you need to let them do the thing and not micromanage the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for business and for a relationship. Yes, keep communication going of what's working and maybe some things you want to tweak, but really being open to having it look however the heck you want. Like it's up to you to create that balance of what feels best to you. And I think that with that, for us as a couple and for myself and my mental health, it's been really important for us to support each other in getting out and doing the things that we love individually, not just at home with the family or with the kids or whatever, but my husband going to some games or golfing or different things like that, but also allowing me to go rappelling or, out for a girls' trip away or whatever it is. I just think that so often it can be something that you want to hold tighter to, but you'll find the more you let go is when things can really grow and thrive, and that love is reciprocated.
Yeah, I echo those thoughts. And, going back to what you said earlier, kind of combines with this, that I think it was the first question of the three you were asked the most is about friendships. And I think we just live in a different time. People don't get out as much as they did anymore. I know there's like, at one point, my wife was on an app when we had moved cities. I forget what the app was called, but basically it was like Tinder for moms to meet up.
Yeah.
So
Peanut.
Yeah. So we're in a different world now. It's hard to find friends. It's hard to find people. It's hard to get out and do different things. And then not to mention, COVID got thrown in the mix. So if you were somebody who was maybe starting to facilitate that, and then that got shut down, maybe you just said, it's not for me anyway. I'm just going to hang inside and spend time with my family or my TV. So I think it is great for for the full spectrum of your business and your life to have this, I would call it like this leisure outlet that a lot of people just don't have anymore.
Yes. You know what? I'm trying to think who it was. I was listening to the book Shoe Dog, that is the creation of and the story of Nike and how it was built.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about his story is that there were so many failures that came along with the successes that you never hear about. You know, it's something that I would have never heard about. But so often, what I thought was really cool about his story is that he created community culture for adventure and friendship. And I think that that is essential to our health. It's not just about movement, it's about people. And that if you can incorporate a team that is a part of your Shoe Dog, your Nike team, that you will succeed. Because I think that if your physical health isn't in a good place, your business health won't be in a great place. And that's something that he attested to in that book, was that every successful, really successful, truly successful person that he knew was taking care of their physical health, which, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here because your audience, you're all super healthy. So I just think that I love that what you're all doing, because I feel like it is essential to our mental and our physical well-being.
It is, but to play devil's advocate here, it can go too far. So what I mean
Sure.
by that is I talk a lot about how, we need to make sure that vanity is sort of a secondary goal, because just like you said, the community and the health aspect, it used to be primary, but it sort of got pushed back. And now people are
Yeah.
more in tune with like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, but did I really go to the gym unless I took 50 pictures of myself at the gym and posted them online? So it's
Yeah.
like, well, at some point that needs to sort of take the back seat to more of the kind of the health and community aspect. And that's why, I'm not someone who does CrossFit. I'm not someone who does Olympic lifting in general, but I found that so great because they built a community around people who like to do the same thing and like to work out together, and
Yeah.
that was special. And I think that's, unfortunately, there's a lot of fitness now that's too based around vanity. And I hope it gets back to more of the things like, hey, you want to go rappel, you want to go hiking, you want to go play basketball for 2 hours, or you want to go play soccer with all of your friends on the weekend, even though you're in your mid-30s and you haven't played in maybe 15 years. That's great. Like this is more of the movement we need, not just go to the weight room, lifting purely for vanity related reasons.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you one story I saw really quick this morning of a girl who was prepping to lift a heavy bar, and she had her earbuds in, and she said in the caption, this is all that her reel said, is, "I just want to make a friend at the gym." And I was like, and someone wrote in the comment below, "Then take out your earbuds." And put a smile on your face, because in the video she's kind of mean mugging a little bit, but I thought, man, we all want a friend. Like we all want to feel that connection and that humanity of feeling that strength of community. And so I love that you say that, because I think that that's true, that it's easy to get wrapped up in any one thing. It could be anything, but really I think all of us are craving that human connection that we all need.
I can't tell you how many times I've been at the gym and I kickbox. So I'll be hitting the bag, and either during my sessions hitting the bag or afterwards, somebody taps me on the shoulder and they're like, "Oh, you do Muay Thai?" And then they start talking, and they just like, they couldn't wait to kind of have that conversation, and vice versa. Like I see people hitting the bag and I want to go up and talk a little bit about Muay Thai. And I think it's lost, unfortunately, with some of the lifting community, that they don't have that they do have their earbuds in and they do look sort of, I don't want to say mean, but focused.
Yeah.
And I'm doing,
sure.
and I'm doing my thing, and you can't talk to me. And I don't really know how to fix that. I don't know if that's a huge problem, but I do think that, like we're talking about, having some sort of outlet where that isn't the case, where you're still doing movement, but it's more in a friendly manner with a group, whether that's kickboxing or playing soccer or kickball on the weekends or something, is very important for both physical and psychological health.
Yeah.
So tell my audience where they can find more about you personally, whether that's your Instagram account or your website and your program, whether they want to work with you one-on-one, or they have questions just about all of the things you do, from the blog to the podcast and anything else you want to plug.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. Well, so my handle on Instagram is CamilleWalker.co. That's CamilleWalker.co. That's also my website. So CamilleWalker.co is the hub for my courses, for my my virtual assistant course there, as well as my podcast, Call Me CEO, and my blog. And if you're looking for a way to connect with your children in a really awesome way with the holidays coming up, I actually wrote a journal called Time for Us, which is a journal for parents and children to do together, that you sit side by side, and you can do creative things and like inquisitive questions and everything else. So that's really fun. It's on Amazon. Just search Time for Us. But yeah, I would love to help coach anyone that's interested. And I think there's so much potential in expanding your team. So if that's something you need help with, or finding balance in parenting and business, I'm happy to help out as well.
I will link the website and the journal in the description. My guest today has been Camille Walker. Camille, thank you for joining the TrulyFit podcast.
Thanks for having me.